Hey everybody, Hilux Yoda here. I just thought I'd do a little video of the equipment and tools that I've made and used for detecting in the rivers. I have a lot of you guys that comment and send me private messages on what type of pick do I use, or or how I use them, and whatever else. But I have some tools laid out here that I'm going to show you that I use most, some that I hardly use, some that I use for different types of rivers, how deep the rivers are. But first off, I have this pick here. Now this pick here I bought. It came from a company called Bunk's Picks. You can see here, short handle one. It's got a little magnet on the end. You can see that. This one here I use in rivers that are shallow, and I'll show you how I use them. But if you can look here, this one, I'm gonna show you guys how you can make these without having to spend the money to order them, because this thing here was like 60 bucks with the shipping and everything. So, and when I got it here, I looked at it and it's pretty plain simple. I'm going to use this for an example of how I made it. So this is just a regular shovel here. It's a fiberglass handle. I also use this for rivers, but I'll tell you how I use this and why in a minute. But basically, you would buy a shovel, like a good type of shovel, like a tempered steel, the heavy gauge one, and you would cut it right before this handle bends. Now I'm not saying use a fiberglass one, you can use whatever you want, but this case scenario I'm just showing you. I cut it like right about here, okay? And then what it is, if you look on the pick, you can see that this is half of a spade, just like this. So what I did was I cut this right above this indentation here, all the way across, okay? And then what I did is this here, this is actually a leaf spring off of a car, truck, an older car, or a pickup truck. And the reason why you want to use a leaf spring steel, you don't want to use carbon steel, because what's going to happen is the point's going to wear down and it's going to lose its effectiveness, because there's going to be situations where you need to get in between rocks and pry them out of the way, or if you need to stab at it a little bit, ahead of the target, so you can get and rake it back. Now, what I do if I get a target in hard packed gravel in the rivers, I would take this pick here and I would go about a foot above the target and I would break it up, and then I would take this edge here and then I would scoop it back. Now, a lot of times in the videos, you'll see the coin laying right there when I do my underwater shots. They're not on the surface, guys. What I do is I do exactly what I showed you. I'll break it, loosen it up, and then I would rake it back. And then when I take my detector, if it's not where the target originally was, well, then I know it's in the pile. So I'll take my pinpointer down there and fish for it in the loose pile. And then when I find it, I'll move it out of the way, and then I'll take my camera down. And a lot of times you'll see it when I see it. So, but anyway, this is one that I made. Now this is a longer handle one, and I use this for rivers that in deeper water. And there's a river that I hunt in, Barber River, where I found the Barber halves. There's a lot of iron in that river. So what I did is I took some 15-pound magnets and stuck them to the end of it. I just cut some little pieces of pipe so the magnets would stick in there so they wouldn't move around. But you can see this is the brand of shovel I use, Trooper. And I cut it right here just like I showed you before the bend. And I took the leaf spring, same thing with the leaf spring. I cut a little triangle out of a piece of a leaf spring because it's hardened. Again, you don't want to use, if you're not a welder, you might know somebody who is, they can make this for you cheap. The shovel, you want to buy the best shovel you can. This one was like almost 20 bucks. And it works out great. The leaf springs here I actually got from, I own a Toyota pickup, and I just cut a piece of the leaf spring off that I had laying around, cut it into a triangle. And then what I did is I welded the top of this shovel all the way around it, the handle. And then and then I put that piece of the spade shovel on top of it, and I weld it. Now you just want to weld here. You don't want to weld the very ends because then it'll be prone to cracking, because this is tempered steel. And the same thing with the ends back here. I don't know if you can see that because the lighting's poor. You don't want to go to the very edge. You want to leave it, because what's going to happen is, I'll show you on one of this bunks picks here. You can see the cracking right there from constantly pulling back. And the reason it's cracking is because they welded right to the edge of it. And not only that, this is like a thinner grade gauge steel than the heavier duty shovel I bought. But yeah, these are my tools. This one I made. It's a long handle one. You know, obviously there's no magnet on the huge magnet on the end, because like some of those big name river hunting guys have, because unfortunately here in Illinois we don't have cannonballs or artillery shells or Civil War objects, so what we have is a lot of iron nails. You know, I mean, these 3-pound magnets, or these 3 15-pound magnets, are good enough to where when you scoop the target back, it'll catch some of those pieces of iron. Because sometimes they'll mask the target. I've had that happen before, so that was my idea for these magnets here. I got one on this end and one on this end here. It works great. I use it all the time in deeper water, so I'm not bending over, getting my neck and head underwater. But for shallower water, this is great. For deeper water, this is great. This is what you want to use. And also for deeper water, I'm going to show you in a minute. I usually carry a sifter, tow behind me a sifter. I'm going to show you the sifter in a minute. Okay guys, now this is the sifter I made here. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Obviously this is 2-inch PVC that I put together. Now these are regular foam noodles that you can buy at any store. They're for swimming pools for kids. And what I did, now it'll float without this foam, but I put it up on here just for added buoyancy. And if you could see this is actually here, this is a bread tray or a bun tray or whatever you call it. You can find these things in the back of any grocery store or restaurant. Usually they're laying around, and you know, I'm sure they wouldn't miss just one if you took one. But that's what this is here. And when I made it so it sat on top of the PVC, because I wanted everything above water. And obviously the holes in this bread tray are a lot bigger, so dimes and quarters and everything will fall through. So what I did was I got some hardware cloth from my local, you know, hardware store. I think it was Menards where I got it. Now there's a big name beach hunter here in the Chicagoland area that put out a video of how he makes his sifters. And the only thing wrong with that is the hardware cloth that he uses is galvanized. Now the problem with galvanized is it's metal, okay? Now the coins that you see me find in the rivers are very tarnished, and you know, if I'm gonna scoop, you know, the gravel and stuff here that the target's in, I might have a hard time finding it. So that way I can use my pinpointer on there and it won't go off. It'll only go off on the target. Now the shovel that I showed you, now I only use this sifter. You might see some of my videos where I have it, some that I don't. Well, also what I did here is I just bought a dog leash and I put on there around the PVC pipe before I glued it together. This way I can hook it on my utility belt and it can float behind me. But obviously I use this in deeper water, and the reason I use this in deeper water, and this here, for deeper water, it's hard to bend down and grab the target without putting your whole head under there. So what I do is, that's why I have this. When I get a target, I'll break it loose and rake it back with the pick, just like I showed you, the long handled pick. Again, so that way I'm still above water. And then I will take this shovel, once the target is no longer in its original spot and I know it's in the pile, I will take this shovel and then I'll go ahead and scoop everything in. Sometimes it might take 3-4 scoops before I get the target in here, and then that way I can take my pinpointer and fish for it. But yeah, I use these in deeper water and it works great. Also, I use it too when I'm finding bottles, sometimes, you know, out there in the Fox River, as you saw in my last video, there's a lot of bottles laying around, and I'll pick them up, throw it in here, or sometimes I might have some big pieces of garbage or trash I want to take with me that I find in the river. And sometimes when I'm, you know, because again, there's deep parts and shallow parts. If I'm hunting a shallow part, I don't want it to tow behind me, I'll take this and I'll actually tie it off on the side of the shore. You know, I'll tie it around a rock or a piece of branch or something, and I'll just let it sit there. And then, you know, if I find a bottle or something, I'll throw it in here, or whatever else, or big pieces of trash. But it works great. And also I recommend too, if you're going to make one similar to this, to actually spend the money on the better zip ties, because the cheap ones, as soon as you tighten them, they like to snap. I had a bag of zip ties. There were cheap ones that I got at my local AutoZone or Advanced Auto, whatever it was, and almost every other one of those things broke. So I actually got the good, you know, the good, I don't know if they were 3M or what, but I got the better kind, and they hold. I mean, even this nylon meshing, this has been on here for 2 years now, and never had a problem with it cracking or breaking. There might be a couple spots that might be broken from, because sometimes I carry my tools on here while I'm detecting, and I'll let it float behind me. But alright, well, that's these are the tools that I use, and they work great. And well, there you have it, guys. Those are all my tools and equipment that I've made and that I use for the rivers that make my river hunting more efficient and actually cheap to make. So I want to also let you guys know, give you an update on that little contest that I did in my last video. I did choose a winner. I actually announced it on a video that I did during the week, because I went back to that spot in the river there and made some more great finds. The finds are starting to slow down a little bit. Not a whole lot is like before, but I did make some great finds. But I announced the winner in that video, which I should have uploaded in about 3 days, give or take. I'll try to get it uploaded during this weekend. I announced, you know, who won. A lot of you guys had some great ideas, but there was one that stood out that I chose, and I will announce the winner. It will already be announced in that video, because I just made a video during the week. So sorry, you guys are gonna have to wait for that for a few more days at least. But I kind of like doing these contests. It's kind of fun giving stuff away. And what I want to do is I want to do some more. So maybe the next video I do, I might have another similar type of contest. You know, something I found. You know, some kind of giveaway. But anyway, you know, that pretty much wraps it up. But I do have a clip that I'm going to throw in here that I made probably a week ago. Because I have a couple of guys asking me about the CTX and about the battery compartment, or what do I do to keep it from leaking, and if I had any problems with it leaking. So I'm going to throw in this clip here. So if you guys are familiar with a CTX, or if you do own one and worried about taking it in the river or in the beach or whatever, worrying about getting water in it, I'll show you exactly what I do and what I got for it, so you will never have a problem with it leaking. I'll show you step by step how I clean it, the type of O-rings that I purchased for it, and what I do to keep it from leaking. So you guys want to hang around and watch that, that'd be great. But if not, then I'll see you guys at the river. Okay guys, this is my little kit here. Okay, for all you guys that are familiar with the CTX, this is the O-ring, the stock O-ring that comes with the machine. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. You can see it's kind of thin. Now, a lot of people, the problem is they would put, this only goes in one way now. It's got a raised edge on one side and a flat edge on the other. a lot of problems when guys put these back in. They might put them in backwards, which will compromise the seal. And so I've used this many times, never had an issue with it. And I actually bought an O-ring upgrade kit. I got this through Andy Savage a couple years back when I took his Mind Lab boot camp class, whatever you call it. And it came with actually, 2 sets of O-rings and a little thing of silicone grease. This O-ring here, obviously for you guys that aren't familiar with the CTX, and those of you that are, but there's a USB port here. Again, for those of you that are not familiar with it, that are watching, it's a USB port, so you can hook your computer up to it and change settings, download information from your GPS on here and everything. But it does have a rubber inside the cap, but there was nothing, if you can see that there, that's where the O-ring seats. It also seats right there on the lip edge, because if this O-ring is not in there, there's actually a little gap in there, which is fine because at the back of this cap has a rubber plug in it, so water still can't get in there. But the kit comes with this extra O-ring just for added protection. Now for the back here, now the most problems that people have with water getting in here, they'll have their seal in here, and they'll take their battery out to charge it after they're done at the beach or something. Now sand gets everywhere. There might be little particles or pebbles of sand. They take the battery off, they charge it and put it back on. They might not realize a little grain of sand that will get on that O-ring will compromise the seal, and you'll get water in there. A lot of people say, well, I cleaned it and blah blah blah. To clean it, you have to take it all the way off. Sometimes, sorry for that, I'm trying to hold things and everything with the camera, but I like to use one of these air dusters. I already cleaned this, but I'll spray down the latches and everything all inside, and I'll actually take a Q-tip. I'll bite down on the end of it so that way I can get it in here so it fits, and I'll go all the way around and get it all cleaned out. And then what I do is I'll take the O-ring here, and then I'll put some of the silicone grease on it. Now you don't have to use the grease. I like to use it just to extra assurance that nothing's going to leak. I mean, I just put like a thin film coating on all around it, and also I'll put a little thin coating around the battery edge. Now you also want to clean and blow out this battery too, because if you get some grains of sand in there and you go to put it back on, that sand's gonna fall onto the gasket, and that's another problem where people have leaks. So just to let you know, that's what I do, and that's how I clean my machine. And also too, you want to, let's try to do this, I also like to unhook this and make sure these connections here are tight. I check them each time, so that way there's never a problem. Alright, well, I got the O-ring all lubed up and put in there, so everything's ready to go. And you can tell with the thicker O-rings, you can hear the difference in how it snaps. I mean, there's a lot more sealing that's going on in there compared to this stock O-ring. And now what I do for the final step is I'll take, a lot of people use rubber bands, and I said this in my previous video, I like to use good 3M or Scotch electrical tape. What I'll do is I'll wrap a few layers of tape around there to hold these clamps from opening. And the reason I do that is because I have a harness hooked to it, and when I'm digging something, I'll swing the detector to my side and let it float behind me. But sometimes this strap might catch and pop one of these open, which I've had happen before, but luckily I caught it before the machine went in the water. So, and I don't I don't suggest using rubber bands at all, because what happens with rubber bands, they'll end up scooching down or scooching up and they'll come off. At least with the black tape, you wrap it real tight a few times around there, it's not going to come off unless you take it off yourself. So